أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. On behalf of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, I am pleased to welcome you to another live English broadcast where we intend to have an edifying discussion. Today we reflect on the life and work of Maulana Muhammad Ali. Some years after the death of the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, the prevailing circumstances at the time compelled Maulana Muhammad Ali and his associates to establish the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishati Islam in Lahore. Their mission was to continue the work of the promised Messiah. This morning, with the assistance of my two guests, we will examine how that mission was carried out. Joining us today, firstly, is Dr. Noman Malik, a retired physician at Mount Carmel Medical Center, who served as a clinical assistant professor at Ohio State University, as well as being the chairman of the Medical Advisory Board of the Ohio Red Cross. Dr. Malik has undertaken immeasurable propagational work for the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishati Islam Lahore, USA, and has given lectures all over the globe in various universities. He is also the grandson of the late Maulana Muhammad Ali. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Also, we have with us Imam Amir Aziz, the Imam of the oldest mosque in Germany. Mr. Aziz is the holder of a Master of Arts in English and is certified in Arabic language and Islamic studies. He is also certified in professional studies from the United Kingdom. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Malik, who was Maulana Muhammad Ali?
Well, Maulana, to put it in one sentence, I would say Maulana Muhammad Ali was perhaps the greatest Islamic scholar of the 20th century. And actually, I would say that in throughout Islamic history as well, he has a very high position as far as his knowledge of Islam and especially the knowledge that he gained from Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and then he brought that knowledge into the present world in the English language. So he occupies a very high position in Islamic history as well. So now I think you have asked me to talk about Maulana Muhammad Ali, his life history. That's like trying to fit an ocean into a cup, really, and one cannot do justice to him. So I will just sort of skim through his life history and try to give you a flavor of who he was, what his life history was, and the impact that he had on Islam and uh, Muslim people, as well as the non Muslims in the rest of the world. So he was born actually in India, which was in the Punjab area in 1874. As a child, he was extremely precocious. At the age of 3.5 years, he actually went to school with his brother. And the schoolmaster noted that this child was learning actually faster than the older students who were about 4 years his senior. So he finally graduated along with his brother and the rest of the class. And then he went into middle school at Kapurthala. And then he went to, for his higher studies, he then went to Lahore, which was the capital of the Punjab. And up there, he had a brilliant academic record, standing first in the Bachelor of Arts examination there, And he entered law school and attained very high positions in that field as well. Uh, Alongside his studies in law, to support himself, he also went to the what you call he was applied as for the job of a professor of mathematics in the Islamia College, and his professor gave him only a one-line recommendation, and that was that he is the best mathematician in our university, and that was it. So after now towards during this period, Maulana Muhammad Ali and his brother had both read the books by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and had become convinced that he was the Mujaddid of this century and the promised Messiah and Mahdi. And he also formed a friendship with Khwaja Kamaluddin, who was the founder later on of the Woking Mission. Khwaja Kamaluddin had already joined the Ahmadiyya Jamaat and taken the bai'at of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and he took Maulana Muhammad Ali to meet him as well. And after this first meeting, Maulana Muhammad Ali then was very impressed by the great spiritual personality of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and he took his bai'at as well too. So while he was then finishing his law school, he was also busy translating the some of the works and the manifestos and pamphlets and articles that Hazrat Mirza Sahib used to put out into the English language. And this continued till 1899 when he finally finished law school and he decided to practice law. And here was this young man at the age of 25, well versed in Western culture and education, and had a very bright future ahead of him as in the law field. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad asked him to stay with him for 6 months before he actually took up law. And during these 6 months, of course, he observed him very carefully, and at the end of that, he asked him to stay on in Qadian and dedicate his life to the service of Islam. Maulana Muhammad Ali readily accepted. In fact, he said that he was himself on the verge of asking Hazrat Mirza Sahib if he could have permission to stay on in Qadian. So, in this capacity, then, in 1901, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad decided that they needed a magazine, actually, a journal which should be sent to all the Western countries in English. And Maulana Muhammad Ali was chosen as the editor of that journal. And he then began to write articles on his own as well. These articles, which were published in a very high standard of English. So people used to say that perhaps Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad has got an Englishman stored away somewhere in his house, hidden, who was writing these articles for him. But no, it was Maulana Muhammad Ali. And even the likes, this magazine was very influential in its days. And even the likes of Tolstoy used to read this magazine and write their comments about the articles and how much they liked them. So this, I could tell a lot about what he was, life in Qadian was, but I would especially like to read out a quick, some few excerpts of what Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad thought about Maulana Muhammad Ali. And one of these excerpts is that uh, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad writes, during this period in which he has been with me, I have been observing him both openly and discreetly to assess his moral character, observance of religion, and goodness of behavior. So thanks be to God that I have found him to be a most excellent man as regards religion and good behavior in all ways. He is unassuming, modest, and of a righteous nature and pious. He is to be envied for many qualities. It is obvious that such a promising young man possessing these qualities, who are able and honorable, cannot be found even by searching. And then in another uh, uh, writing of his, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said that I am very happy that another good young man, having found the grace of God, has joined our community. That is Maulvi Muhammad Ali, M.A. Pleader. I have very good expectations of him. For a long time, he has borne a worldly loss in order to stay in Qadian to serve the religion, and is learning the deep knowledge of the Holy Quran from Hazrat Maulvi Hakim Nuruddin. I am sure that my foresight will not go wrong in this, that this young man will make progress in the path of God, and I am sure that by the grace of God, he will prove to be so firm in righteousness and love of religion that he will set an example worthy to be followed by his peers. O God, let it be so. Ameen. Thumma Ameen. So, this close relationship of Maulana Muhammad Ali and Hazrat Mirza Sahib is very important, because even so much so that once the Hazrat Mirza Sahib called the editors of the organizations, newspapers, Al Badr and Al Akam, and he said that if there is any article or writing published with my name on it, please show it to Maulana Muhammad Ali first and get his permission whether that can be published or not. It is important in the sense to prove that um, Maulana Muhammad Ali had a very good understanding of what the teachings of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad about the Ahmadiyya movement as well as Islam were. Then in 1908, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad died, and Maulana Nuruddin of blessed memory then became the head of the movement. He also had a very high opinion of Maulana Muhammad Ali, and he actually then in 1909 asked him to start the translation of the Holy Quran, which Maulana Muhammad Ali had also requested that he should be allowed to do so. And so he was not only doing the work of translating the Holy Quran, but he was also at the same time now the secretary of the movement. Now we have been to Qadian and seen that small room in a place where temperatures go to 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the sun, I mean in the shade. So in this small room, he used to translate the Quran at night and evenings. During the day, he was busy as secretary. And I do have the volume, or rather, we do have the volumes here of the actual handwritten manuscripts of Maulana Muhammad Ali. And sometimes in some of the pages, you can see the wax droppings as he held the candle, searching those voluminous dictionaries of Arabic in order to write or translate uh, the Quran into English. So, so this state of affairs continued till, of course, the death of Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin in 1914. And unfortunately, then certain events took place, which for which Maulana Muhammad Ali had to leave Qadian. And the main reason of that was that the son of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, was then sort of acclaimed as the leader of the movement, and he began this introduced this notion that his father was a true prophet, and anybody who did not believe in him was actually a kafir. So that would include all the Muslims of the world as well as anybody else. So at this, Maulana Muhammad Ali first protested and tried to counter these wrong teachings, but he finally had to then part company, and he moved to Lahore, where he founded the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishat Islam Lahore, which was to carry on the true mission of mm, the Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad actually. And it was here that, this, I would say, the sword of Islam, which had been unsheathed by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, was then wielded for 50 years. And it would not stop until, of course, it was taught by the hand of death itself. And during this time is and brother Amirji Sahib will discuss his books in more detail. But I would just like to point out that if there is to be anything about his character, it would be summed up in actually two sentences. And that would be that his character was based on the love of the Holy Quran and his desire to share that Holy Quran with the rest of the world. And I will read now just two of his, uh, you know, excerpts from some of the khutbahs that he gave. And one of these is that all of us must cherish but one desire, and only this must fill our hearts when we bow before God, that may the divine religion, the Quran and Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, be triumphant. Ask only for this, yearn only for this, shed tears only for this, seek that which has been destined to happen. It is these prayers that will take you to the height of closeness to God, where every prayer of a human being is answered. And one more, which again gives you actually the way that he led his life as well. Rise up at night and pray. That is the Tahajjud prayer. To be enabled to serve the Quran is a great blessing. Implore God grant you the spiritual strength by which you can carry the light of the Quran to others. I appeal to all members of the Jamaat that if they want to succeed in achieving their magnificent goal, there is only one way: prayer. And as much as possible, they must cry before God and keep their stress on prayer, so much so that prayer must be uppermost in their minds during all their activities. While prayers in congregation are a means of attaining a high goal, you must also say some of your prayers in solitude, in some corner of the house where there is no one to see you but God. Develop the kind of prayer in which, when you are in prostration before God and the time comes to rise from it, you feel unable to lift your head. So this, I think, would be the character of Maulana Muhammad Ali. As a man, of course, he was extremely humble. He was very pious. He never lost his temper. My mother used to tell me that she had never seen him ever scold or berate any servant ever, no matter the servant may be a bumbling fool, but he would just patiently bear everything with a smile on his face. And you know what can I say about the rest? Now we so sometimes it is easy uh, to you know say something about a person. If you are a supporter, you will always say something good. But more important is something which comes out from the mouths of people who are not Ahmadis. Uh, that is when that shows the true worth of the person. And I will read again, more for the sake of, I think, the audience who may be watching, than for many people who have, read this. And that is the review by uh, Mamak Dude Pictol. I seem to have misplaced it. But anyway, in this review, Mama Dick Pictol says that perhaps no other living person has done as much service to the cause of Islam than Maulana Muhammad Ali. Then he goes on to say that his writings, including those of Khwaja Kamaluddin, have brought fame and distinction to the Ahmadiyya movement. And then he goes on to say that how much these writings are needed at this present time, when so many Muslims, due to lack of knowledge, are making mistakes. And this, of course, that time the Muslim nations were sort of coming into their own to some degree, but now most of them are independent. And we can see by all the atrocities, the wars, and the conflicts which are taking place in the Muslim world, that how much these teachings of Islam, which are enshrined in this book, which he was Mahmadi of Pictor was writing the review on, that is the religion of Islam, are needed today. And we have translated these books into many other languages. So now this one I think I must read out. At present, Pakistan has declared Ahmadis as Kafirs. It's in the forefront of this movement to declare Ahmadis as Kafir, including the Lahori Ahmadis. But there was a time when he died in 1951, when he died, Dawn, which is the leading English newspaper in Pakistan, it wrote an editorial about the passing away of Maulana Muhammad Ali. And from there, you can judge that what his true position actually was in the Indian subcontinent and in the world. It says Maulvi Muhammad Ali, whose death occurred in Karachi, probably did more writing on Islamic subject for almost a century than any contemporary individual. Immersed in scholarly pursuits and gifted with a researcher's frame of mind, his aims were not academic. He was a missionary who awoke to his calling in life in the environment of the last century, when Islam in the subcontinent was a target of concentrated, scurrilous attacks from Western missionaries and votaries of a venomous revivalist Hinduism, that is the Arya Samaj. A man of his academic distinction in the late 1890s must have overcome a strong temptation in declining to enter government service, the inevitable goal of education in those days, and choosing instead a missionary career. The object to which he dedicated his life was the translation of the Holy Quran into English, and he lived long enough after the first edition of his translation and the commentary appeared in 1917 to follow it up with many other works. The best among these subsequent works are believed to be his Muhammad the Prophet and the Religion of Islam. The former is a biography which preeminently serves its purpose, and the latter is almost encyclopedic in its range of information. As a missionary, Maulvi Muhammad Ali had profitably studied the publicity techniques of the European missionaries, and his prolific writings reflect his ability to devise a suitable approach to almost every individual uh, section of his readers. Stupendous was the energy that he put into this task, and as the years grew on him, the willpower made up for what was lacking in physical strength. He died working almost till the end, silent and unassuming as he was. Both man and his works were appropriately reflected in the fact, paradoxical as it might seem, that his writings were better known than the man himself. His death is a real loss. He will be mourned by a wide circle of friends and admirers. So, this is the opinion of Pakistan in 1951 by Maulana when Maulana Muhammad Ali died. Now, just again, I will end my this thing talk with a little quote here from this foreword by Maulana Yaqub Khan for the second edition, because he revised, as you know, the 1917 edition in 1951. And in this 1951 edition, there is a lot which was not present in the 1917, as he says himself, that during these 50 years, Allah Ta'ala increased his knowledge immeasurably. And he put that down, all down in this second edition. But again, it tells you what the character of the man is, that he is now on his deathbed. One of the things, of course, he whispered into the ears of Mr. Nasir Ahmad Faruqi was that our work is to take the Quran into the world, and after that, the Quran will do its own work. That is between God and man, then. But as for himself, his last days, on arrival of the proofs from England, he was now proofreading the 1951 edition. write his biographers, the Maulana would get his head raised up in the bed and with hands quivering would correct the proofs and give the final touches. The final proofs were corrected on October 8, 1951, and 5 days later he breathed his last. He died literally in the harness in the service of the Quran. So, with this, I think I will end my little talk. There's so much more I could tell you, but unfortunately, time does not allow it. So, I think I might have taken a bit more than my time too.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malik. You certainly summarized the life of Maulana very well, and you did uh, allowed us to understand who he was from the various reviews that he would have read out to us. Moving on, Imam Amir Aziz. Maulana Muhammad Ali produced a vast amount of scholarly writings, which not only has been acclaimed by eminent Muslims all over the world, but they have served to restore Islam to its original purity as a religion of peace and tolerance and spirituality. Can you provide a summary of Maulana's literary work?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. First of all, I thank you for inviting me to this very important discussion. Uh, I would like to say that Maulana Muhammad Ali uh, was the Martin Luther of Muslim world. As we know that just last year in Germany, 800 years of the first translation of Bible, it was celebrated, and it was only in 800 years the first time it was a public holiday on the name of Martin Luther, and just to commemorate that he was the person who first translated Bible into the from Hebrew only. So Maulana Muhammad Ali, he was actually the Martin Luther of Muslim world, because he was the first Muslim who translated Quran into English. That is the first most important point which we have to keep in. Although before him there were many other non-Muslim, they had already translated, but he was the first Muslim. So that is the we can say the biggest contribution ever given to the whole history of the Muslim world. It was in English translation. And secondly, what is very important to know is that Maulana Muhammad Ali's time was the time of intellectuals, and he was one of the we can say that the topmost Muslim intellectual of his time, which the history produced in 20th century. What I would like to say, because at that time in the Muslim world, when we see, especially in subcontinent India, Pakistan, Dr. Iqbal, he was also his like of the same era, and then there were many other people that they had served their nation and Islam according to their own capacity. But he was the person, Maulana Muhammad Ali, who produced uh, that literature which affected not only the Muslim world but also the non-Muslim world. As Brother Noman has already pointed out about his influence on the Western world, I would just like to say that one I would quote that there was a very famous Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi. He was the person who later on translated Quran into English himself. Abdul Majid Daryabadi, in his own life history, he wrote his own biography, autobiography, and then he pointed out about Maulana Muhammad Ali. So I would like to quote that. He said that I have left religion of Islam. He was so disappointed by the religion of Islam that he became almost, you can say, atheist. He's narrated that he went to the library of one of the of that princely um, because in that India it was in different states, and there was one prince of the state where he went into his study, and he says that I suddenly I found out the translation of Maulana Muhammad Ali, English translation, and I started reading that translation. And in his autobiography, he writes, it is in Urdu, but I'm just translating it. He says, in Urdu, he said, when I finished that translation of Maulana Muhammad Ali, so I मैंने अपने आप को मुसलमान पाया. So I became a Muslim. Like he was a Muslim, he was away from Islam, and he said that after finishing the translation of Maulana Muhammad Ali and his commentary about the Holy Quran, I found myself Islam, and he said the way silently I went out of Islam, I came at the same way back into Islam. So that was the contribution of Maulana Muhammad Ali, and later on this Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi, one hero, and he says very interesting point. He said, I don't know what was his view about the founder of Ahmadiyya movement, of Maulana Muhammad Ali. I have nothing to do with it, but I can tell you that if I have learned Islam again and I came back to Islam again, that was only because of Maulana Muhammad Ali. And then in the end of that autobiography, he wrote the people who had done a great favor in his life. One of the name is of Maulana Muhammad Ali also. That was the impact. And later on, what happened? This is the same person who then translated Quran, and he says that before that, some of the people of those who were not Ahmadis from different Muslim sects used to say to him. He said that many people requested me that you translate Quran into English because there is only one English translation, and that is why Maulana Muhammad Ali, who is belonged to the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement. So he said that I was thinking, how would I translate it? I cannot. And then he also pointed out very interestingly, he said, you take Maulana Muhammad Ali translation, people they suggest him, take him and just add and subtract something in it and make your own, so that we can show to the world that we have also the English translation. That was the contribution of Maulana Muhammad Ali at that time. So because nowadays maybe people they don't know him, but let us see what was his contribution of his time, and what was his view about what was his that towering personality of the amongst his own people of his time. Then Maulana Muhammad Ali. Now just see that the work translated Quran into English, revised. Now then he took another great task, that is to write the Urdu tafsir. That it translates not only just in English, but then he made Urdu tafsir that is known as Bayan al Quran. Now this Bayan al Quran is much more comprehensive than the English translation. English translation and commentary, he wrote it keeping in mind the Western world, the people who were not aware of the Muslim world and not much aware of the Muslim of Islamic terminology. But Bayan al Quran, which he the English Urdu translation and commentary tafsir of the Holy Quran done by Maulana Muhammad Ali, is much more on a larger scale. It was done on a much more larger scale, and it became very popular even till today. Till today, this has impact on the Muslim world. And then he translates. The next, that the interesting point is that not only in this way that I had said that he was a Martin Luther of Muslim history, he also translated Bukhari and made the commentary which is known as Fadl al-Bari. Now it was again a huge task. It was not a common task at all. And nowadays there are many translations, and there are many people they have translated a hadith book. But at that time he translated the whole Bukhari into Urdu, which is known as Fadl al-Bari, and he also wrote its commentary. So not only just like translation, but also made a commentary of it. And then if we go like we keep on going, there are like if we just keep on counting his books and what literary work he had done, then comes another very important book, that is Religion of Islam. Now this Religion of Islam was it is an narrated incident that as I pointed out, Allama Iqbal, who is considered as the nowadays a national poet of Pakistan, he says that Ilama Iqbal was once, because he had a very close link with Maulana Muhammad Ali, and he used to preside the all the annual gatherings which we used to have, the organization used to have in Ahmadiyya building. So Ilama Iqbal was once weeping and he was very sad. And Maulana Muhammad Ali and some of the delegates, they met him and they said that, why are you so sad, and because you have done so great for the Muslim world. And he said that, no, Molana, what I did, people they forgot it because it was just a poetry. People they listened my poetry and they forgot. And then he said that, I want that there should be somebody should revive Islam and write something about the revival of Islam, and write a book which can explain Islam in that. So Maulana Muhammad Ali's Religion of Islam was actually that inspiration given by Allama Iqbal. So on this, then he wrote this book, Religion of Islam, which became which is known as the Encyclopedia of Islam till that time. And it was in the syllabus of Punjab University till the time that we know that Pakistan, the situation changed. And then Maulana Muhammad Ali, this book, like the Religion of Islam, which is in Urdu is Deen Islam, but and it became famous. And as Brother Noman, he also pointed out about Pickthall, that he wrote one of the foreword for this book. And then um, later on, like his, if we keep on count, he wrote a very brief, short life history of the Holy Prophet, which is in Urdu is Khair al Bashar, in and in English it is known as Prophet Muhammad. And then another important point is that, like Maulana Muhammad Ali, when he was writing, he was having two different stream of thoughts. One, the Western thought, the other is the Eastern thought, because he was there in subcontinent. He never visited, but he had a very close link and a very good knowledge of the Western world also. So he was writing the things, so many books in English, and at the same time he was writing it in Urdu for the people of that time. So in this, Khair al-Bashar was in Urdu, and Prophet Muhammad, then he wrote it in English. And then another important book is which is for pious caliph. I tell you that this book is, although people they have not much knowledge of it and people they don't, but these three books were the syllabus of Punjab University, and they were taught by the people. And even now, I know the person who has written this master's book for Islamic studies. He took almost 80% of the literature of Maulana Muhammad Ali and he put it in his own book. And the people who have already read Maulana Muhammad Ali, they once asked this writer, he said, you tried to create we can say, he said that you tried to create a new thing from Maulana Muhammad Ali, but you could not, because it was Maulana Muhammad Ali's own writing. So then there are many other books which we see. And I just tell you that then, like he was at the same time he was writing book for translating Bukhari, and then suddenly it came in his mind that many non-Muslims who accepted Islam at that time, many people who converted to Islam, they wrote him that because the books, ahadith books, they were in Arabic and it's of also very big volumes. So we could not. So they requested him to write something, a book for hadith for him, to compile a book of hadith for them so that they could easily understand. So then he made Manual of Hadith, which is a small book, you can see, and it is almost one third of Bukhari. And he took all the references, all the only authentic hadith in that. That also became very popular book. Now, I once met nowadays Javed Ahmad Ghamdi Sahib is a well-known scholar in the Muslim world, and Brother Zahoor and we were both in his office once, and we met one of their that scholar. And when we told him that we are from Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, and we told that about Maulana Muhammad Ali, he said, I had his photographs on my on the wall, and I all the time look at him and I say, God, how is it possible that this man, while he did not have such a long life, like it was not 80, 90 years, how was he able to do this great work in such a small span of life? So he said that I always look at him and I say that how is it possible that he wrote it in English, he wrote it in Urdu, and then he translated books. So I mean, and not only this one. Now let us see if we can. The organization, our central Anjuman has collected his sermons, Friday sermon. So there are 24 volumes, 24 volumes of sermons. So you like he was giving sermon on Friday, and now they have also started compiling his writings and also like his article, which is known as Afkar Muhammad Ali, and there are also more than 20 volumes. So just look at the work, like literary work. He was this one man. He was doing it, then he was correcting it, then he was proofreading it, then he was like revising it. So this work which he did was like, and if I go on the, like, then if you see there are one more important book is about the authenticity of the Quran. He also wrote about Jama Quran. It's in English, is in Urdu it is Jama Quran. Very interesting book, that where he pointed out that how Quran was compiled at the time of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then also he wrote one of his book about the hadith, the position of hadith in Islam. And then this is one part. At the same time, now he was giving the reply to the Qadianis, those who suddenly actually had a wrong interpretations and the wrong beliefs. They adopted wrong beliefs. So he then started, a very great work, missionary work, that he was writing for the non-Muslims, Western world. He was writing, so he was enlightening the Muslims of the subcontinent. And he was producing literature for the revival of Islam in Urdu, and at the same time he was also writing. He was clarifying the position of the founder of Ahmadiyya movement, that he never claimed to be a prophet, and he actually spent a lot of his time on this also, and wrote a lot of books. So we don't have much time, I think. I would just finish now. Brother Noman knows it, that his book Religion of Islam, it was translated in Arabic also. So you can, I just want to tell you that what is the situation, what was his intellect, which we can see that what a great leader he was of Muslim world. That the last Sheikh Al Azhar, Sheikh Tantawi, he wrote one of the he wrote reply to the Pope recently before his death, which I actually found here also, and there is some confusion, but anyhow, he is addressing the Pope and saying that you have misunderstood the concept of jihad. And he says, if you want to know the true concept of jihad, now this is not coming from a common man, he's coming from the head of Al Azhar University, Sheikh Tantawi, and he is addressing to the Pope, and he is pointing out that if you want to know the real concept of jihad, then you consult the Religion of Islam by Maulana Muhammad Ali. So like this, this is how you can. Although now currently the people, maybe that the people, they are not aware of his work, but the history will never forget it. And I just read, as Brother Noman said, that this is book by Sheikh by Maulana Muhammad Ali, the Religion of Islam. It's a Arabic translation. I just want to tell to all the people who are not aware of Maulana Muhammad Ali's great work, and it has been translated in Arabic by Brother Noman Malik and Auntie Samina. They have done a great job in translating these books into Arabic by the Ohio Jamaat. And this foreword was written by Sheikh Al Azhar on this book, Maulana Muhammad Ali. Now, just see in this context, there are one side, if the people they say that he is not a Muslim, and at the other side, just see that the top leader of the Muslim world of Al Azhar University, what he says about his book. Because whatever Maulana Muhammad Ali's point of view is, whatever his religion is, all described here in the religion of Islam. So what he writes in Arabic, I just read it for those who know Arabic and those, and I'll just translate it. He says, अत्तलातु अला किताब अद्दीन अल इस्लामी लिल इलामा मौलाना मोहम्मद अली रहमहुल्लाह व तय्यब सराह व कद लमिस्तु फी हादिल किताब अन नफीस अल इखलास व सिद्क अल अकीदा वल इल्म अन नाफि व असर अल्लाह अज़्ज़ा जल अन यकूनु हादिल किताब अल इल्मी अल जलील फी मीज़ान हसनात सयादतिही व सल्लल्लाहु अला सय्यदना मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम शेख अल अदर Sheikh Muhammad Tantawi. Not by just a common man, like it is all his. If I don't know whether you can see it properly or not, I just for my viewers, I would just like to say these are his signature. Now, what he says that I read this book, and he is writing says that on this book of the Religion of Islam, which is in English is Religion of Islam, and its translation in Arabic is Ad-Din al-Islami. I said that I read this by book by Maulana Muhammad Ali, and then he prays for him that may Allah bless his soul in the heaven, and may Allah bless his grave. And he said that I found this book, this very nafis, that's a very excellent book, and I found that it is written by a very sincere person, al ikhlas, that it was by the sincerity of heart. And then I found the true sidq al the true faith, the true concept of Islam, Sidq al Aqida, wal ilm nafi, and very beneficial knowledge I got from this. And then he again prays for him that may Allah bless him. Then he says that may Allah make this book on the day of judgment a great blessing for him on the day of judgment. So what he says, Sidq al Aqida, that I found the true faith in this book. So just see at one side the topmost scholar of the Muslim world, who is head of the university and also the head of another university and another institutes. He is writing about this Maulana Muhammad Ali's book, and he is quoting the book of Maulana Muhammad Ali to answer to the Pope. So what else the Muslim wanted? Where else? Where are the other scholars? Why they were not pointed? So I mean that this is what we can know that if from these only I just pointed out only 2 3 points. There are a lot of incidents. If we talk about the Western scholars, what they wrote about Maulana Muhammad Ali and all of them, so it will take a lot of time. So I just gave you only few examples, and more than 50, 60 books he wrote, and pamphlets, and if we calculate then it there becomes almost more than 70 small pamphlets also he was writing the books. And now then comes another important point. He was not only just because this is a function of a writer, but he was also the head of the organization, and he was doing all his managerial work also. So I mean that when it is in the office, I know I am in the office, and I just told you before the program that maybe some people they will come for the prayer, and I have to go out, and maybe I have to look at them. So he was also managing the whole organization. So this was the great work which he has done, and especially his writing. They were actually, I can say that they were the
Thank you very much, Imam Amir Aziz. My final question is for both gentlemen. If we can both contribute to this final question. Maulana's legacy continues to stand as an example to young men and women to employ their talents with a high level of determination, zeal, and sincerity in the cause of Islam. What, therefore, are the lessons that we can learn as young Muslims, young Ahmadis? What lessons can we take from the life of Maulana? Dr. Malik, if you want to um, contribute to that question.
Yes, I would love to contribute to that question. Actually, that's a very important question which actually deals with the progress of the Lahore Ahmadiyya Jamaat and the reason for its existence as
Was
well.
there, I think there was some
Uh,
distortion?
Sorry about that. I would have seen you went down, but now you've
Oh,
popped up. And we're on to the next question. Dr. Malik was in the
okay.
process of answering.
Okay, then it's
yes, the advice, to give any advice, the first thing which is sorely needed is that one must understand the reason why we are Ahmadis. If we understand the reason why we are Ahmadis, then the answer is already included in that. And the reason that we are Ahmadis is because we believe that Hazrat Mirza Sahib was the Mujaddid, the promised Messiah, and the Mahdi, and that it is his teachings, his interpretation of Islam, which will eventually win over the world to Islam, because these are the teachings which show the beauty of Islam. And for this, we have only one recourse. Number one is that we should pray to Allah Ta'ala, because without prayer, we can have no progress. So, as young people, we must realize that our first thing is to establish a bond with Allah Ta'ala. Now, these two things are interrelated. It is not that you have to sort of establish a bond, but the very act of trying to share your religion with others is will produce that desire then to increase your bond with Allah Ta'ala through prayer, because it is only through prayer that you can get the both the power and the way how to sort of communicate to other people what Islam is about. And in this, one should not, one should approach this more in the sense of the way to sort of Im- imbibe in one way the divine characteristics within yourself. And the greatest of these divine characteristics is, of course, the rahmah of Allah Ta'ala. Now, rahmah means, actually, we translate it as mercy, but what it means is that to love something so much that one is compelled to do good to it. And this attribute Allah Ta'ala has made binding upon himself in the Quran, and twice he has made it binding upon himself. So what we have to do is not to approach them as like we are a football team and they are a football team and let's see who wins, but rather we should approach them as the Holy Prophet approached them, and that was that in the Quran he was told several times by Allah Ta'ala that will you kill yourself with grief, sorrowing after them? So this is, unless we feel the same way towards our non-Muslim brothers and sisters, we cannot really convey the message of Islam to them. In this particular thing, I would just say that there's a word, there's a verse there which said, "Inna Allah yamuru bil adli wal isani wa itai zil kurba." This itai zil kurba is actually the highest form of good, and that Hafiz Sher Muhammad of blessed memory, he once explained it very nicely. He said, "Look, zil kurba means that you think every one of your all human beings as your near relative." So he says, what does that mean? It means that, let's say if there is a child who is dying, the mother and father are there, you will go there, you will visit there, you will empathize, sympathize with them, and then go back home. But then what do you do when you go back home? You go to sleep. But who will sit by that child and pray to Allah Ta'ala? That is going to be the parents who are going to do that. And that is the condition of the Holy Prophet was, that he considered the whole of humanity as his close relation. So we must first of all develop this within ourselves and that is by prayer. And I will just read a little thing which Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali, he uh, had many passages in which he directly addresses the young people. And I will just take a short one of this. And if the one wants to know as a young person what one needs to do, then this is how you develop that type of character within you. And that is, he says, the knowledge of the Quran is an inheritance from the promised Messiah, with which the triumph of Islam in the world is bound up. Learn all the branches of knowledge, but use them to serve the Holy Quran. But you cannot bring them into service unless you yourself understand the Quran. You cannot take the Quran to the world unless you have the following three requirements. Firstly, learn the Holy Quran itself. That does not mean the Arabic meaning, but you have to learn actually the meaning of what these verses mean for your spiritual development. Secondly, learning other branches of knowledge and bringing them into the service of the Quran. And thirdly, learning other languages and spreading the teachings of the Holy Quran in the world by translating them into these languages. And then he says also, along with that, you must remember that this is God's work. The strength to do it can only be obtained by falling before God in prayer and beseeching Him for help. So, just as it is the object of your life to acquire the knowledge of the Quran for the purpose of spreading it in the world, likewise, praying to God to ask for help and for strength to do this work should also be considered as the purpose of your life. And then he goes on to say that one must be regular in your prayers, and especially as Ahmadis, we have to, say our tahajjud prayers. And uh, as far as tahajjud prayer is concerned, I will just give one short incidence of Maulana Muhammad Ali. That is that Mian Nasir Ahmad Faruqi, who himself was a great mufassir of the Holy Quran, he used to sometimes go to Dalhousie, which is the mountainous area which Maulana Muhammad Ali used to go. The houses were there constructed of wood. So the floors were very thin because there's just a plank of wood separating you. He said that every night, without fail, at about 3 or 2 o'clock in the morning, he used to hear this crying with somebody who has his head on the floor at that time. And his body is being racked with sobs. So this was Maulana Muhammad Ali at night time, daily crying before Allah Ta'ala for to bring Islam into the world. And during the daytime, he was a jovial person. He would enjoy somebody's joke. He would not walk around with a dour face all the time. But the condition at night in the tahajjud prayer is what made his writings and his speech so effective. And that is what our young people should really try to do. First, start the service of Islam. That will take you to the Quran. That will take you to prayer. And this is a circle which will then build upon itself. So that would be my advice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malik. Imam Amir Aziz, you were, I don't know if you heard the question, but I was asking whether are there any lessons that we can take as young Muslims and young Ahmadis from the life of Maulana Muhammad Ali?
What lesson we can learn from is a devotion, dedication for the purpose. So the most important point which I would like to say that Maulana Muhammad Ali, while with his own literary work, he brought revolution in the mind of the people in the West and also in the East. People, they even those who have read his books, those who are not a member of the community, they know what contribution he has made to the Islamic world. And what we can learn from from Maulana Muhammad Ali, that in this very short span of life, we can achieve wonders, and we can achieve the task which is given to us, and that is the service of Islam. The most important point we have to learn is, first of all, we have to learn ourselves about Islam, what Islam is. We have to learn Holy Quran. We have to have a good knowledge of the Hadith. We should have good knowledge of the history. If you read Maulana Muhammad Ali's book, you will find that he had knowledge of not only just he was very good in English, but also he had knowledge of the whole Islamic history. He had the knowledge of the hadith. And as I just see somebody, he wrote it here a question: did Maulana Muhammad Ali study Arabic? He was one of the scholar of his time. Arabic was like, if you go into the if you read his translation, Urdu translation, which is Bayan al Quran, he amongst all the mufassirin of the commentators of the Quran, you will find his quality that he even explains the word and its meaning, the Arabic word and its meaning, and gives its root meaning of what does this mean, and then he explains this the concept of that verse and the Arab. So what we can learn from him is the devotion, dedication, and to get knowledge. Because if we do not have knowledge ourselves, then we cannot present it to the others. We can present knowledge only when we have knowledge ourselves, when we have learned well, and then we can take it to the world. The second, that he was at that time managing the whole affairs of the organization, and at the same time doing his literary work. So we have to be make up ourselves to that position where we can do the managerial work, whatever is assigned to us, and then at the same time. But the most important is, our task is to preach Islam, to clarify Islam to the people, and that is the task which was he has done in his lifetime. And now it is up to us that how we clarify the teachings of Islam, because now the time has changed. There are a lot of new things are coming. So let us now go into this new technique. We have to know the new. There are people, they have a lot of new objections coming on. We have to make ourselves up to the mark so that we can respond to this question. I just give you one example, that one a book is here published here in Germany, which became very well famous. That book also has actually my interview also has a lot of other imams from the Germany, but no, the writer, he said that he read a book of Maulana Muhammad Ali, The New World Order. Now this book is very interesting if we read that book. But if somebody will read it today, maybe that he will have a confusion about it or what he is talking about, because then in that book Maulana Muhammad Ali is writing that, look, there is the whole Europe is destroyed with the bombs and all this. So this writer who wrote this book in Germany, the Inside Islam, he criticized this book, and he said that, look, what this man is writing, that Europe is all bleeding and there is bomb. But unfortunately he didn't read that when he wrote this book. So then I called this man and I said, okay, come, I have some objections on your this book. And he said, I said, what you wrote about this? He said that, look what he is talking about. I said, have you read the date when this book was published? When he looked, I said, this he is talking about the World War II. At the time he was writing, it was not just at the time when, now it is, he is not writing this time. This man, he died in 1950. So what you wrote, you have to apologize for it, and then you have to take it out from your book. So I mean that now the time has changed. If somebody has to, we cannot go with the new world order now, because obviously the time has changed. We have to get knowledge. And I tell you, if somebody is going to read Maulana Muhammad Ali's book and his literature, he will have sufficient knowledge to counter with all the objections which are raised against Islam. So our own main function is to preach Islam, present Islam to the world, which is actually peaceful, loving, tolerant, and harmonious religion.
Thank you very much, Imam Amir Aziz. We have come to the end of our broadcast, and I would like to thank our panelists, Dr. Numan Malik of Ohio, United States, and Imam Amir Aziz of Berlin, Germany. Before I close, I see that we have some comments. I just want to read one from a viewer. In describing the qualities of Maulana Muhammad Ali, is dedicated, committed, devoted, intellectual, hard worker, down to earth, flag carrier of unity between Muslims. Um, to our viewers, I just want to mention that if the books of Maulana Muhammad Ali are available on the internet, on specifically at muslim.org, as well as aaiil.org, where you will find all of his books, as well as other publications on Islam by other writers. Thank you as well to our viewers for your comments and for participating um, in the program with your questions as well as viewing. Please remember to like and to subscribe to the channel for more enlightening videos on Islam. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be on to you.
Wa alaikum
Walaikum
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And thank you, Brother Arif, for your very enlightening management of this discussion. And inshallah, we look forward to your other topics on which you will
Assalamu alaikum.
preside as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Walaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.